Welcome again to 5 Minute Fix. Today we're addressing screen time. I'm Kim.
And I'm Bridget.
So I wanted to start by asking, is screen time as bad as people make it out to be?
I think screen time's an interesting one because when articles come out in the paper, they either say screen time's great, and there's heaps of those that say, screen time's not as bad as you think it is, or it promotes development, or you get other articles that say screen time's terrible. So parents are often just kind of caught in the middle as, should we let our children go on screens at all, or is it helpful at all? I think that it's not so much how much screen time, but it's actually how screen time's used. And I think just taking into consideration that we all use screens, all of us. It's not just children. It hasn't just changed for children, but it's changed for adults as well. And in current day, in current life, everybody uses screens. So we need to prepare children for that world that they're going to live in, that world full of technology and full of a way that they're going to be communicating with screens.
When does screen time start to become bad?
I think that when screen time actually starts to impact some of the other activities children might have been doing. So, obviously children need to be out developing physical skills, developing social skills and making friends. And when they're on screens a lot, it's actually reducing the time that they can be out playing rugby and making friends and taking turns in normal life. So that's when it starts to impact children. I think that if screen time's used really well, it can be a real positive though for their development as well. And I always think, if you look at relationships, we know children need to build relationships, and they need to build relationships with friends and with parents and with educators at preschool. And you can actually do that using screens as a tool rather than getting in the way and doing something solitary. You could use the screen to Skype your grandma, and they can be talking and using language and developing language through Skype, which is using technology, or sending photos to a friend, or looking at photos of them and their friends and talking about it. So there's some really great ways where you can promote relationships using screens. Another way we can use screen time in a positive way is to develop social and emotional skills. So perhaps getting the children to take turns with the iPad. You can be developing things and using it in a positive way. It's actually really good for concentration and persistence and finishing a task, because you can be doing a game or an app that's quite complex, and it's great for cognitive development. So there's some real positives to screen time as well. One thing to watch with screen time is not too close to bed, because there's a lot of research that screens before bed do impact children's sleep.
Is there any other times we should start to be concerned about screen time?
I think the only other thing to really think about as a parent is, and especially as your children start getting a little bit older, is internet safety. So making sure you know who they're contacting, who they're building those relationships with, knowing that there's a whole world of people out there that perhaps aren't looking for the same things from children that you'd want them to be. So really knowing who they're talking to and who they're communicating with and what they're doing. I think that's a big one. And one other thing just along those lines is having a look at the content of what children are looking at, making sure that the content's appropriate for their age and their development, and that it is promoting their development, because there's a lot of advertising, there's a lot of marketing, there's a lot of suggestive or content that you don't want children looking at. So really looking at ways to filter that content and know what it is they're accessing is one of the most important things.
Are there any other positives that we can get from screen time?
I think there are. I think on a final note, it's really good to remember that these days it's actually a right. It's one of the human rights is to have digital access. And if you think about children in developing countries that don't have computers or internet, the United Nations is now looking at ways to get those children access so that they can learn and grow and connect with the world. So as parents, instead of thinking no more screens, that's bad for the children, they're not playing outside, we actually need to think, how can we enable them to access this digital right that they've got within our current world? Because when they grow up in the future, we have no idea the skills that they're going to need with digital technology, but we know that they're going to need them, so we can't hold them back. We have to let them develop these skills and develop the drive and the ability to connect with everybody else in the world. It's actually a fantastic thing, the rate the world's changing, don't you think?
Definitely. Well, thanks, Bridget.
Thanks, Kim. Great.
See you next week.
See you next week, everyone.